This is not breaking news. This is not a crash. This is not about one person. This is about a system that looks calm right up until the moment it isn't. Right now, everything appears fine. Prices seem stable. Jobs still exist. Markets look healed. And that's exactly the problem. Because the most dangerous economic failures do not announce themselves with sirens. They arrive quietly. They feel good at first. They reward you immediately and bill you later. What you are watching is not stability. It's latency, a delay between cause and consequence, between policy and pain, between confidence and cost. If you stay with me, I'm going to show you how an economy can look strong while its foundations are being intentionally weakened. Not by accident, not by incompetence, but by design. And once you see the design, you can't unsee it. So keep watching. Because what comes next explains why this moment matters more than it seems, and why the calm is temporary. What actually controls this system now is not growth, not productivity, not even markets. It's leverage through uncertainty. The power no longer comes from making the economy predictable. It comes from making it volatile on command. When rules change without warning, when threats replace plans, when stability itself becomes negotiable, the system reorganizes around one priority: survival. Corporations hoard cash. Workers delay moves. Investors chase short-term signals instead of long-term value. This is how control shifts, quietly, from institutions to impulses, because when everyone is bracing for the next shock, the person who can trigger it holds the advantage. Even if that shock damages the system itself, this is the reframing that matters. The story is not about whether policies are good or bad. It's about what happens when credibility becomes expendable. An economy can absorb mistakes. It cannot absorb permanent doubt. And once doubt becomes the operating environment, every apparent success starts doing something else beneath the surface. It starts pulling future stability forward, borrowing from tomorrow, accelerating what comes next. And that's where this begins to get dangerous. For most of modern American economic history, there was an assumption so basic we stopped naming it: that tomorrow would look roughly like today. Not identical, not perfect, but legible. Companies could plan, households could budget, markets could price risk. That assumption didn't collapse overnight. It eroded slowly. At first, volatility was framed as flexibility. Disruption was sold as strength. Uncertainty was called leverage before policy changes came with runways. Signals, guardrails. Now, change arrives all at once. With no warning and no commitment to permanence, what used to be exceptional became routine. And because nothing broke immediately, it felt normal. That's the trap. Slow shifts don't trigger panic. They train adaptation until adaptation becomes exhaustion. An economy can survive almost anything except not knowing what rules it will be asked to follow next. And once that uncertainty is normalized, something subtle happens. The system keeps moving forward, but it starts doing so on thinner and thinner ice. And the cracks don't show up where you're looking. They show up where you're not. Then the first shock hit, not because something failed, but because something was announced. In a matter of hours, trillions of dollars in market value disappeared. 2 days, a double-digit drop, the sharpest fall since a global emergency most people thought was unrepeatable. And here's the detail that matters most. Nothing external caused it. No virus, no natural disaster, no foreign attack. This one was voluntary, self-inflicted. And almost immediately, the system did what systems under stress are trained to do. It snapped back. Markets recovered. Headlines moved on. Relief settled in, which is why this moment is so often misread. Because the crash wasn't the story. The recovery wasn't the story either. The real signal was what happened in between. How quickly confidence vanished, how violently it returned, and how little changed underneath. If you're still watching, stay with me, because this was not the crisis. It was the diagnostic test. And the results were not reassuring. What that test revealed is the mechanism itself. This system no longer runs on production first. It runs on absorption. Costs don't disappear. They are relocated. When pressure enters the economy, it doesn't hit consumers immediately. It moves sideways into corporate margins, into delayed investment, into inventory buffers built for calmer times. For a while, that works. Companies eat the costs. Retailers stall price increases. Markets reward the illusion of resilience. But absorption is not elimination. It's a holding pattern. Someone always carries the weight, and it is always temporary. This is how damage is hidden in plain sight. By spreading it thin, by deferring it forward, by trusting that confidence will outlast math. And here's the part that rarely gets said out loud. The system rewards the actors who can shift costs fastest. Those with scale, those with pricing power, those who can wait, everyone else absorbs the shock in silence. This is not stability. It's suspended impact. And suspension only works until the buffers are gone. Which brings us to the second break. Then the second break began to form. Not slowly, not quietly, faster, sharper. Workers disappeared from key sectors, production tightened, schedules slipped, costs rose. Again, this time, there were fewer places to hide them. Margins thinned, inventories drained, flexibility vanished. The system tried to compensate, it always does. Prices nudged upward, investment paused, hiring slowed. None of this made headlines. That's important because systems don't fail when everyone is looking. They fail when stress becomes background noise. Job numbers still looked fine. Markets still held. The surface stayed calm. But underneath, momentum shifted. Growth didn't stop. It lost direction. And once an economy starts moving without a clear vector, it doesn't need a shock to fall. It just needs time. And time in this system is no longer neutral. It's the accelerant. Here's where this stops being abstract. Because you don't experience an economy in charts, you experience it in timing, in the pause before a purchase, in the hesitation before a job change, in the quiet math you do at night, trying to decide whether now is safe. Right now, you're being told things are fine. And technically, they are, but fine is not the same as secure. When systems run on deferred costs, the first thing they take from you is certainty. Not all at once, bit by bit. You feel it when rules keep shifting. When prices don't spike, but don't settle either. When planning starts to feel like guessing. This is the human tax of instability. You're asked to adapt faster than the system explains itself, to absorb risk you didn't create, to trust that the delay means safety. It doesn't. If this feels familiar, stay with me. Because what you're sensing isn't anxiety, it's signal, and the signal doesn't stop at borders. What happens next is not contained because uncertainty doesn't respect borders. It travels through supply chains, through currencies, through alliances that were built on predictability. When a system that large starts signaling instability, others adjust defensively. Not out of hostility, out of math. Trade partners hedge. Investment reroutes. Governments plan for scenarios they hoped they'd never need. You can see it in shortened contracts, in duplicated supply chains, in countries deciding they can no longer assume continuity. This is how fragmentation begins, not with conflict, with precaution. The problem is that precaution is expensive. Redundancy costs more than trust, and those costs don't disappear. They accumulate slowly at first, then all at once. The global system doesn't collapse when one player stumbles. It destabilizes when everyone starts moving at the same time. And right now, movement is everywhere. No one knows where this settles. Only that the old map no longer applies. Which brings us to the future. Not as a prediction, but as a set of paths From here, there are three paths, not forecasts, trajectories. The first is adjustment. Costs surface gradually. Prices rise, but unevenly. Growth slows without collapsing. The system absorbs the damage and rewrites expectations downward. This is the soft outcome. Not painless, but survivable. The second path is erosion. Buffers empty faster than planned. Confidence degrades quietly. Investment pulls back, not in panic, but in sequence. Nothing breaks all at once, but nothing fully recovers either. The economy keeps moving, just weaker, more fragile, more exposed to the next shock. Then there is the third path, rupture. That's when delays end simultaneously. When deferred costs surface together, when absorption fails across sectors at once, prices jump, jobs vanish, markets reprice risk brutally, not because of one decision, but because too many were postponed. Which path becomes real depends on timing, on credibility, on whether uncertainty is contained or compounded. And here's the part that matters most. The system is already moving. The question isn't